Bureau mobilized its agents from the Asian branch office in order to step out from the chauffeur-driven car's back seat. She felt as if the heavens were crashing down on her the day she learned of her father slowly dying from that illness. Even then, she unreservedly believed her father's words. If someone else declared oh so proudly that he'd cure this incurable illness, Yoo Jin-hui would flat out not believe that man. However, just who was her father? Was he not the one and only Chairman Yoo Myung-han, the man who could legitimately be called the top dog in South Korea's financial world? That was why she held on to that slim strand of hope. But in the end, things had become like this. It was around then, as she raised her head, her eyes briefly caught the sight of a rather familiar face walking past her. This man. Hadn't she seen that face often before? As she began wondering where she had seen him, the man also must have sensed her gaze, because he pulled the hood down even further and rapidly distanced himself from her. She stared at the man's back and tilted her head just a little, before resuming her walk. The identity of that man was not an important issue to her, anyway. Her phone suddenly issued out loud ringtones. With the hour being so late already, the corridors of the hospital were mostly empty now, and the ringtone sounded especially loud to her ears. Hello? Yes, hello. I'm calling from Seoul Ilsan Hospital, miss. I couldn't get in touch with your mother and had no choice but to contact you first. Her mother had taken a shot of sedative and had fallen asleep at home, so she wouldn't be able to wake up and answer the phone now. But why was the hospital calling her like this? Yoo Jin-hui instantly became scared by this call made by the doctor in charge. That was why she was extra cautious when asking back. Did something happen? Actually, Chairman Yoo Myung-han has. As she heard the ensuing explanation, her eyes grew as large and round as a rabbit's. Ting. The moment the door opened, she rushed out and entered the hospital room, and was greeted by the sight of her father's face shifting towards her. From the top of his head right down to the tip of his toes, he was definitely her father and there was no need to even suspect otherwise. Dad. Yoo Myung-han, currently surrounded by a cordon of doctors, turned his head towards his little girl. Jin-hui. Dad. She jumped into his embrace and as Yoo Myung-han gently patted her back, he finally realized that he had returned from death's doorstep somehow. I'm alive. However, could he really describe this as a coincidence? While the cordon of doctors in charge responded with whispers of it's a miracle, and with his daughter sobbing her eyes out as she clung to her dad, Yoo Myung-han began focusing on the sounds of his own beating heart. How could this be? He was already well past his 50s, yet his heart was pounding away vigorously as if he was still in his 20s. Instead, This can only be described as a miracle and nothing else. A patient woke up from the final sleep state of the eternal sleep disorder, and on top of that, his body had become even healthier than when he went to sleep, too. Didn't the word miracle exist precisely to describe a situation such as this one right here? Instead of celebrating, Yoo Myung-han pondered something for a while before raising his head to look at the doctor. By any chance, are there cameras installed near the hospital room I've been staying at? Pardon, I don't understand what. There is something I'd like to confirm first. Are there any cameras installed inside the room or around the entrance itself? There are none within the room, but there should be one by its entrance. Very good. Right here. This is the only odd thing that happened, the doorway malfunctioning this one time. The guard pointed at the screen and explained what happened back then. The windows were confirmed to be locked from the inside, so the sole exit left in that hospital room was the doorway. However, all 4 guards manning the door said the same thing. They said that not even a single ant had entered the room during their watch. Next morning, his departure time neared and employees from the Japanese Hunters Association came to escort him. When he got near the airport's vicinity, Jinwoo began realizing why the Japanese Association was so particularly mindful of taking care of his appearance. Because he could see throngs upon throngs of people outside the moving car's window, and there were even more people beyond them. Jinwoo became utterly speechless and silently stared outside, while the association employee spoke to him in a clearly excited voice. Everyone gathered here today all wanted to see you at least once before you depart, Hunter Nim. One couldn't even argue that this sea of people was forcibly organized either, as there were simply too many of them for that. Just how many people have shown up here today? It's not an exact amount, but we estimate over 100,000, Hunter Nim. That many. The vehicle carrying Jinwoo quietly glided along the road that had been cordoned off tightly. When they went around a corner, there was just as big a crowd of people, no, maybe even bigger than before, waiting to greet Jinwoo's car. Baru, watching this spectacle from within his shadow, quickly engaged him in a chat. "Oh, my king, your loyal subjects are expressing their genuine adulation and awe towards you, my liege. It's not like that. Oh, my king, perhaps it is for the best that you wave your hand and acknowledge your subjects." "Hey, I said it's not like that. Where did this guy see and learn all this weird stuff from?" The plane carrying Jinwoo taxied off amidst the sending off of over 100,000 people. In the opulent mansion owned by one of the 5 special authority rank hunters, Christopher Reed, he suddenly woke up in the middle of the night. The cause? The noises from the surroundings. As one of the very best hunters acknowledged by the world, he'd not be able to fall asleep even for a single day if he were to mind every little noise he could hear. And that was precisely it. He didn't wake up because it was too noisy around him. No, it was the exact opposite. Why is it so quiet around here? All sorts of ambient noises he could hear if he concentrated just a little were gone, as if they were all a lie to begin with. He kicked off from his bed and opened the bedroom door. He couldn't pick up on the presence of several hired help who should have been located in various spots of the mansion. Christopher Reed wordlessly stared at the empty corridor before walking over to grab a wine glass left on the table and came back to the doorway. And then he threw it in the corridor. The wine glass left his hand and drew a gentle arc in the air before hitting the floor to shatter into bits and pieces. However, there were no sounds still, not even one. At that moment, a powerful chill crawled up his spine. He realized that something that could not happen had happened. His sharpened senses were sending out warning bells. They were warning him that he was now facing the kind of danger he had never experienced before. His instincts strongly advised him to make a certain action, right now. He quickly moved away from the doorway. He ran to the bedside bureau to pick up his mobile phone resting on top, and at the same time, he yanked open one of its drawers. There was a piece of crumpled paper resting silently within. These words were written on its surface. "If you need help, please call this number. The president of the Korean Hunters Association, Go Gun Huey, will connect you to that man." The deputy director of the Hunter Bureau left behind that note with the steward before leaving. Did the madam actually predict a moment like this would come? He didn't know the answer to that. But if he wanted to find out, he needed to survive first. It was too late now to ask for help or let someone else know of his situation. Christopher Reed put the phone and the note down and quietly stood back up again. The first person he saw after slowly turning around was a blond man with a bright smile etched on his face. One of this man's hands was even tucked in his pocket, a display of utter leisure. Such a relaxed demeanor would be rather impossible to find from a normal person invading the residence of a rank S hunter. And not only that, a hunter boasting one of the highest levels in the entire world. Christopher Reed asked, "Who are you people?" The blondie in front of his eyes, and 2 more behind this one. There were a total of 3 intruders. It was already unknown whether he'd be able to fight off just the one in front, and to think, there were 2 enemies of similar caliber present, too. If you keep trying to accommodate these humans during your struggles, you won't be able to save a single thing. Oh, fragment of the brilliant light. And worse still, his voice sounded truly bizarre, as if it didn't even belong to this world in the first place. Monster language. Christopher Reed's brows shot up real high. Just what the FCK are you saying here? The blondie watched the agitated Christopher Reed react and raised his finger to press it against his lips. "SHH. I wasn't talking to you." The blonde's fluent English this time caused the eyes of Christopher Reed to grow wider still. A being that could speak both the language of man as well as the language of monsters as freely as he willed it. As far as Christopher Reed knew, no such person existed in this world. The finger leaving the blondie's lips then pointed to the heavens above. "Up there. I was talking to the dude up there connected to you." Of course, Christopher Reed couldn't make heads nor tails of what this blonde man was talking about. But he was sure of one thing. He was sure that this blonde was completely looking down on him right now. Christopher Reed's angry voice powerfully reverberated outward. "Do I look like a DMN pushover to you?" Crimson light exploded forth from his eyes, and soon, vicious flames began whipping around all over his body. In fact, his figure became crimson in color as well as he grew larger and larger in size. The furniture caught by his expansion were all knocked and shoved away. His new appearance as the angry flames enveloped his entire body was that of the god of fire. Now easily 4 meters tall, real flames were spitting out from the creature's eyes. "At the bare minimum, I will take down one of you with me." Christopher Reed's punch collided with the wall and caused a massive explosion. The 2 men behind the blondie stepped aside to avoid the debris from the exploding wall, and revealed themselves in full spiritual body manifestation. A human can manifest a spiritual body. They looked on at Christopher Reed's new appearance with some amount of interest. Meanwhile, the floor Christopher Reed stood on began boiling and melting down. For the first time since the worst calamity ever to befall humanity, the Kamish raid, he prepared himself to die today. The flames wrapped around him became even more violent, as if they were about to explode, and began swallowing up everything surrounding him. And as the vicinity was being swept away by his vicious flames, he stood in the middle of this storm of destruction and roared out loudly enough to shake the earth itself. "The UFC King Monster Beastards. What were the odds of finding a familiar face occupying a seat next to yours after boarding a plane?" Jinwoo was guided to the first-class cabin by the stewardess, but before he could take his seat, he ended up staring vacantly at his temporary neighbor. He then spoke in a rather exasperated voice. "I hope you aren't going to blame this one on coincidence. I'd be happy, very much so, if you did, but yes, it does sound like a bit of stretch, doesn't it?" Listening to a blue-eyed foreigner speak such fluent Korean still remained a rather disharmonious experience to Jinwoo. He didn't take his eyes off the man as he settled down on his seat. "We meet again, Mr. Adam White. It's an honor to speak to you again, Sung Jinwoo Hunter Nim." The senior agent from America's Hunter Bureau, Adam White, still carried that amiable smile as he bowed his head, just like the first time they met. "We've only met once briefly, yet you still remember my name. I'm honored. Well, let's just say that our first meeting had been too memorable not to remember. I thought our negotiation had broken down completely. We're aware that seeking you out like this without a prior heads up is quite rude. But an urgent situation had developed and we had no choice but to contact you." Jinwoo abruptly recalled the news of a Rank S gate appearing somewhere in the eastern US. "Could it be that you guys also failed to handle that Rank S gate?" "No, not that. We took care of that one, no problem. If this wasn't about the Rank S gate, then what other problem could there be? Could this matter be somehow related to him killing the King of Giants?" When Jinwoo displayed his clear interest, Adam White didn't waste any more time and pulled out a notebook PC. A video clip came up on the computer's screen and it showed thick rising plumes of black smoke as if a wide-scale wildfire had broken out somewhere. Adam handed the laptop over to Jinwoo so that the latter could watch the clip. "What is up with this fire? We can't put it out. They can't be a normal blaze." The firefighters were clearly in a panicked state. They seemed to be trying all sorts of methods, but the raging inferno showed no signs of weakening at all. No, it was actually only getting stronger and began to slowly box them in, instead. "Where is our backup? When are they arriving?" It was right then. A helicopter arrived in the nick of time and several mage-type hunters disembarked from the vehicle, and they proceeded to pour out water-type magic on the flames. The video clip was nearing its end. Seeing that there wasn't much time left in the video's duration, Jinwoo felt it strange and had to ask, "Why are you showing me this?" Sure, it had been an interesting viewing experience, but people coming to see him because of some wildfire in the US didn't make much sense to him at all. Adam White reached out and skipped forward to the last part of the clip. "Here, please watch the end." There must have been an incredibly powerful explosion, judging from the radius of things being swept away. And in the center of that radius, a single corpse was lying face down there. There was no need to confirm if the victim was still alive or not. There was a wide hole in his chest, and that should have been the exact spot where his heart used to be. In order to put out the fire this man caused, over 18 firefighters and 14 mage-type hunters had to be mobilized. Not only that, they were all top-ranked hunters, too. 14 high-ranking hunters had to give their all just to put out a fire lingering around after the one activating it had died already. Just from that alone, Jinwoo was able to make an educated guess at the identity of the corpse lying face down on the ground. Could it be, is he? As Jinwoo looked up at him, Adam White replied with a melancholic expression. "As I thought, you have recognized him." Indeed, it was Christopher Reed Hunter Nim. "And finally, these are." Adam White pulled out several photos from his inner pocket and spoke up. "These are the photos of the being we at the Hunter Bureau strongly suspect to be the culprit in this case." The being. Jinwoo could only feel confused from the way Adam White said his words, as he didn't sound like he was talking about a man or a woman, as if he wasn't talking about a human but a thing. Instead, soon, though, the Korean's gaze lowered down to the photographs. There was no need to even take them for a closer look. Jinwoo simply stood up from his seat and beckoned with his finger, and that caused Adam White to rise up automatically from his seat, as well. Adam White's eyes opened up wide in surprise. Jinwoo used his ruler's authority to drag the American agent in closer and grabbed hold of the latter's collars. "If this is your way of trying to play some kind of a trick, you, all of you, won't walk out of here alive." He was not making an empty threat here, either. Jinwoo's cold eyes were gleaming like a wild, ferocious beast as he genuinely emitted a murderous intent. Adam White, although his collars were held tight, still managed to cry out, Don't do it." Of course, he wasn't shouting at Jinwoo. His desperate dissuasion managed to stop just in time the movements of the two high-ranking hunters about to descend on Jinwoo. Having successfully stopped the actions akin to pouring oil into the fire, Adam White then pleaded with Jinwoo next. That being in the photo walked out from a dungeon. He's most likely not the person you know. A dungeon. Jinwoo's grip on Adam White's collars relaxed just a tad. Being able to breathe just a bit easier now, the American hurriedly added more explanation. The magic energy emission from that guy was a match to that of monsters, and he suddenly began attacking our rank S hunter as well. My dad came out of a dungeon and started attacking other hunters. As Jinwoo began falling into confusion, Adam White quickly clarified himself. Do you still remember the accident that happened a few months ago in the HQ of Hunter Bureau? That explosion? How could Jinwoo forget? That incident caused quite a bit of clamor around the world. After all sorts of wild conspiracy theories were flung about, such as the explosion being the result of a secret experiment gone wrong, a high-ranking hunter running amok, or even two rank S awakened fighting each other, etc. Are you telling me that was the handiwork of my father? Adam White nodded his head. He beat down one of our hunters and vanished into thin air. We at the Hunter Bureau continued to chase him in secrecy, but as if he had disappeared from this world. We couldn't find any traces of him. I understand how you feel, Hunter Nim. However, that person fits the profile best for this particular crime. For one, he had the precedence of attacking another hunter. He was strong enough to easily exceed a rank S awakened. And finally, his whereabouts were a complete mystery. It would not be all that strange to see the Hunter Bureau designate the being claiming to be Seong Il-hwan as one of the main suspects. What is your reason for showing me those pictures? The International Guild Conference. During the International Guild Conference, where the representatives from the world's leading guilds will gather in one spot, the higher-ups of the Hunter Bureau are planning to distribute that person's pictures, meaning they would no longer keep the investigation a secret. It also meant that the American government had become really enraged by the loss of an invaluable asset called a Special Authority rank hunter, and they would fully mobilize every resource at their disposal in tracking down and apprehending the party responsible. In that regard, there would be no better timing than the International Guild Conference. We at the Hunter Bureau would like to continue maintaining our amicable relationship with you, Sung Jinwoo Hunter Nim. So, you came to inform me first before the public announcement takes place, is that it? From the death of a Special Authority rank hunter to the existence of a being calling itself Seong Il-hwan. And finally, even about the warrant itself, these were the Hunter Bureau's way of showing consideration, as they had rated Jinwoo's abilities very highly and didn't want to become his enemy. Are you alright? Yeah, more or less. Just that I'm a bit exhausted right now. Adam White sounded more like he was trying to console himself. Instead, Adam White asked the hunters for the confirmation. I need to confirm with you both since it happened too quickly for me. Just now, didn't Hunter Seong Jinwoo somehow move me without touching me at all, right? The two high-ranking hunters, who wouldn't lose out to anyone on the matters of excellent eyesight, nodded their heads as their reply to Adam White's question. I thought as much. Adam White felt goosebumps breaking out all over his skin. Seong Jinwoo was the first one discovered to possess the psychokinesis skill outside the 5 Special Authority rank hunters. There is no time to waste. His trembling hand picked up his phone. The ringtone went for a little while before the deputy director answered the call. Adam White did his best to calm his trembling voice. Deputy Director, I just discovered the 6th one. The American Hunter Bureau released the list of the guilds invited to the conference. The International Guild Conference. It was an important event where guilds representing their nations were invited over to discuss the current trends and future prospects of the hunter community at large. An Ajin guild had been chosen to represent South Korea. Its participation in the conference became the hot topic of conversation for both the local and international mass media. The thing was, Jinwoo was the sole high-ranking hunter affiliated with that guild as well as its master. This invitation was no different from the American Hunter Bureau publicly acknowledging that this single hunter was in no way inferior to any of the very best guilds in the world. Guilds that countless high-ranked hunters worked for. However, no, perhaps unsurprisingly, not one person raised a voice of discontent. Because, was there really a need to discuss whether that lone hunter was qualified or not in this case? As the local interest in the International Guild Conference heated up, one of the TV stations requested the master of the Hunters Guild, Choi Jong-in, for an interview. He knew that the station couldn't ask Jinwoo for one and had sought him out as an alternative, but still, he readily said yes. And so, the interview being broadcast live to the nation took up the time slot of the 8 in the evening. The news regarding Jin Guild has attracted a great deal of interest from many people around the country. But what are your thoughts regarding this issue? Choi Jong-un didn't even hesitate for a second before he made his reply. I believe that the American Hunter Bureau made the right choice. It's not you understand the reason why, but you believe it was the right choice. Yes, I definitely believe that's the case. But it's not an exaggeration to say that the Jin Guild is basically a one-man show, is it not? Let's not forget that that one-man show is currently being run by none other than Hunter Sung Jinwoo. Choi Jong-un replied with an amiable smile on his face, and the interviewer also broke out in a smile as well. If you define the guild staff members as personnel that could be mobilized in a combat situation, then you could say that Hunter Sung Jinwoo already possesses hundreds of guild staff members. Are you referring to Sung Jinwoo Hunter Nim's summons? That's correct. I believe that Jin's overall combat potential won't lose out to anyone, even when compared to some of the very best guilds around the world. Even still, the Hunters Guild can't be too happy about this situation. After all, it was your guild that had been participating in the conference for the last several years. Yes, it indeed hurts a little that our dream American trip had to be cancelled this year. I mean, we have all renewed our passports and been waiting for the invite to arrive in the mail, you see. Choi Jong-un joked around good-heartedly, and that prompted a burst of laughter from the audience members. However, the pride I feel easily trumps any pain in my gut. Choi Jong-un had appeared in TV shows quite often and knew how to play the crowd. He built up some suspense to get everyone psyched up first before opening his mouth. Please, think about it. Even if monsters my powers aren't good enough to deal with appear before us, we now have a hunter we can completely place our faith in. In all honesty, my guild members and I, not to mention countless other people affiliated with other guilds, managed to survive all thanks to Hunter Seong coming to lend his aid. He formed a warm smile and finished what he wanted to say. I am genuinely proud of the fact that Hunter Seong has been chosen to represent South Korea. When he did, thunderous clapping exploded out from the audience members. Sir, we got the raid permit for the gate that appeared this morning in the suburb of Suzeodong. It's a rank A, but the actual measurement value apparently isn't that high, sir. That's good news. Choi Jong-un formed a smile after hearing that piece of good news before tilting his head a little. By the way, did Jin Guild not apply for the raid permit again? Yes, sir. Now that you mention it, it's been spookily quiet from them lately. It had been 4 days since Hunter Sung Jinwoo had returned from Japan. And during that time, 4 high-ranking gates had opened up. Basically, it was at the rate of 1 a day. The rate of high-ranked gates being generated had gone up quite rapidly, yet the Jin Guild, or more specifically, the entirety of Jin Guild itself, Hunter Sung Jinwoo, hadn't shown any signs of movement at all. But well, the major guilds located in the capital had been in a constant state of celebration day after day due to these events. All because the destroyer of the monsters, the god of destroying dungeons who rushed in like crazy whenever a new gate appeared so he could completely root out all monsters within, had not shown himself for the last few days. However, Choi Jong-un felt a certain strange sense of discord whenever Sung Jinwoo wasn't there at the location of a gate, and that made him feel a bit concerned. I'm different from Baek Yun-ho of the White Tiger or MT Jayu. If you didn't care about anything else and simply felt happy about an apple suddenly falling from a tree, then what made you any different from a simple-minded ape? Some would begin drooling at the prospect of free apples, while some others would start thinking about the laws of gravity. Choi Jong-un thought that his class hadn't fallen low enough to simply celebrate this sudden slice of good fortune. Nevertheless, our profit has gone up by nearly 40% after not experiencing any competition from Jin Guild, sir. Well, here's an ape. Excuse me. Never mind. It's nothing. Choi Jong-un quickly changed the topic. Did the association say they know what's going on here? They believe that he's at home, resting. The way I hear it, he hasn't even shown up all that much in the guild offices, either. Sir, I don't think there's a need to overcomplicate this. Couldn't he be taking a bit of break in preparation for the International Guild Conference? Choi Jong-un shook his head. I don't think that's the case. Go-gun Huey switched the TV off. As it turned out, it was already 9 in the evening, a bit too late to say that now's a good time to get off work for the day. However, it seemed that Wu Jinqiao still had something else to say. The Chinese have requested for information on Sung Jinwoo Hunter Nim. Information? You mean his personal information? No, sir, it's not that. What do they want, then? The requested information is Sung Jinwoo Hunter Nim's raid records as well as any official reports related to them. That seemed about right. Unless the Chinese were truly dumb, they probably knew they wouldn't be receiving any personal information of a rank S hunter. No, someone who may greatly exceed that category altogether. The question was, why were the Chinese showing their interest in Hunter Sung Jinwoo at this belated stage? After all, they must have heard his decision not to entertain any love calls or scouting offers from other countries, which included China. The one requesting the information wasn't the Chinese government, sir. Really, it's actually from a single individual. An individual. The Hunters Association representing a country would never release information to any individual hunters. But to think, this request was made by a person. Go Gun Huey thought it'd be the obvious thing to refuse that request outright, so he was puzzled by the fact that the issue had been brought up at all. Wu Jinqiao quickly added some additional explanation. It seems that China's 7-star ranked hunter, Liu Zhaijing, has taken interest in Sung Jinwoo hunter Nim. Liu Zhaijing. With the mentioning of that unexpected name, Go Gun Huey became somewhat lost for words. China didn't accept the global standard in ranking hunters and used its own unique ranking system. The higher the number of stars in front of your ranking, the better hunter you were. And for them, 5-star was the highest attainable rank. However, only one person was separated from that ranking system. Only Liu Zhaijing was ranked as the 7-star, and rather obviously, the treatment he received was on another realm compared to the ordinary 5 stars. Of course, not one person was brave enough to raise a fuss regarding the fact that he, a well-known special authority rank hunter, was receiving preferential treatment. He possessed abilities that deserved such recognition, and China herself respected that fact greatly as well. That Liu Zhaijing has taken an interest in Hunter Sung Jinwoo. The thirst of Go Gun Huey's curiosity was then quenched by Wu Jinqiao's reply. Sir, didn't Liu Zhaijing fight the giant-type monster? I'm quite sure that's why he's interested in knowing more about Sung Jinwoo hunter Nim, who had hunted down every other giant. That sounded logical. Go Gun Huey nodded his head. Not too long ago, a single giant-type monster escaped from Japan and swam towards China, and it had been reported that the creature was ably dealt with by Liu Zhaijing at the Chinese coastline. The truly strong can recognize another strong being, is that it? Go Gun Huey formed a slightly mischievous grin. The American Hunter Bureau that invited the Jin Guild, and China's greatest hunter Liu Zhaijing, beginning to show his interest in Jinwoo. Both America and China had finally recognized the true worth of Hunter Sung Jinwoo. For someone like Go Gun Huey, who knew that man's true value from the very beginning, this development certainly made him feel rather good about himself. Even then, that doesn't mean I'll hand over any information, just like that. Was there a need to advertise how excellent Korea's genius was to those craving after other people's geniuses? Sure, a special authority rank hunter would get quite annoyed by it, but so what? We have Hunter Sung Jinwoo, after all. Go Gun Huey made up his mind and let out a genial, hearty chuckle. That request? Deny it, please. Tomorrow's the day Sung Jinwoo enters the US. He had confirmed Jinwoo's arrival schedule earlier, and on the day before that fateful date, he summoned H. Wang Dong-soo into his office. Did you call for me, sir? H. Wang Dong-soo cautiously studied Thomas Andre's atmosphere. It had been a few years since he started working in the Scavenger Guild, but even now, he found it rather difficult to speak to its master. Mr. H. Wang. Thomas Andre went to the main topic right away. Do not ever provoke Sung Jinwoo. H. Wang Dong-soo's eyes grew larger. He formed an expression that seemed to ask how did you know before his gaze drifted towards Laura, standing behind Thomas Andre. She simply responded with her eyes that said she only did what she had to do. H. Wang Dong-soo let a dissatisfied grunt escape from his mouth. Meanwhile, Thomas Andre continued on. I know about your brother and Hunter Sung Jinwoo. I'm sure you feel suspicious of some things and also want to know what happened back then. H. Wang Dong-soo's older brother, H. Wang Dong-seok, had entered a dungeon along with Sung Jinwoo, only to go missing and never came back out. The 8 fixed members of H. Wang Dong-seok's raid party were all dead, yet the 2 people who walked out from that dungeon alive had formed a guild together. So, quite obviously, he had plenty of things to ask Sung Jinwoo. Naturally, his dissatisfaction seeped into his expression. But, before he could properly say something, though, Thomas Andre raised his finger up and waved it around. His lips below the sunglasses arched up. He was actually smiling. I don't remember giving you permission to speak, Mr. H. Wang. Keep your mouth shut and just listen. That was the message of a clear threat. There wouldn't be all that many people capable of issuing a true warning to a top-ranked hunter in this world. One of them just so happened to be Thomas Andre. H. Wang Dong-soo was well aware of the gap between himself and his boss, so he obediently kept his mouth shut. Thomas emphasized his point again. Do not ever provoke Sung Jinwoo. During the duration of the guild conference, take some time off and relax at the guild's getaway villa in the countryside. So, how about it? Are you willing to humor my earnest plea? Mr. H. Wang Dong-su nodded his head, unable to hold out any longer. I shall do as you say. Good to hear. You can go now. Wang Dong-su's expression stiffened hard as he quickly made his escape from the guild master's office. Meanwhile, Laura asked her boss in a worried voice, "Will this be enough, sir?" Thomas Andre's own expression had hardened as well as he shook his head. No, he definitely read the signs of ill intent flickering within Wang Dong-su's expression just now. That fool still couldn't let go of this matter, it seemed. Laura, yes, sir. Until Sung Jinwoo leaves U.S. soil, place Mr. H. Wang under strict surveillance. Will he? Take that lying down. Although he had been suppressed by the aura of Thomas Andre, Wang Dong-su's original personality was as stubborn as it could get, as well. However, Thomas wasn't worried. No, rather, he knew that this matter wasn't simple enough to sweat over something as minor as Wang Dong-su's disgruntlement. Thomas Andre scratched his chin before making a nonchalant reply. Well, being frustrated should be better than being dead, right? Why are there so many reporters here? Germany's best hunter, Lennart Nierman, set foot inside the American airport after disembarking from his plane. He immediately let a surprised gasp escape from his mouth from the view greeting him. As befitting the master of the Richter Guild representing Germany, he got to attend the International Guild Conference every single year. But even then, he had never seen this many reporters camping out in the airport before. As he stood there in shock, the vice master of the Richter Guild tried to solve the riddle for him. Well, that Korean hunter everyone's been talking about is scheduled to arrive today. Lennart understood it right away. Even if you were a rank S hunter, it was incredibly difficult to resolve a dungeon break from a rank S gate. And what if the creatures popping out from that rank S dungeon just so happened to be giant-type monsters? The hunter capable of solo clearing a dungeon break that no one else wanted any part of was about to step on the U.S. soil for the first time in his life. So, how could the mass media remain silent on this momentous occasion? With excellent timing, the passengers of the plane inbound from South Korea began pouring out into the airport. The vice master pointed to the side over yonder. There he is. Should we go and say hi? Pardon, we've got nothing to lose by being acquaintances with a strong hunter, right? Well, yes, that's true. The vice master agreed with that idea. The personal connections built up in such a manner would prove to be rather beneficial if an event requiring international cooperation or the aid of another guild happened in the future. This was, in essence, what the whole International Guild Conference was originally conceived for, where the best hunters from the world were asked to come and exchange pointers, as it were, especially when it was quite difficult for these hunters to actually meet one another like this. Lennart tidied his attire and approached Jinwoo's traveling group. No, he tried to. However, he came to an abrupt halt after taking only a couple of steps. Even his complexion was gradually paling, too. The vice master ended up walking a step ahead because of his boss's sudden stop. He turned around and asked in confusion, "Aren't you going to speak to him?" Lennart's expression hardened instantly as he replied, "Can't you see that?" Excuse me. It seemed that the vice master could not see it at all. However, Lennart was one of the very best hunters in the entire world and he could clearly sense it. He muttered to himself in complete disbelief. Instead of summoning his creatures from some other dimension, he's been going around with them all this time. What was he even talking about? The vice master was taken aback with surprise from Lennart's reaction and quickly took a look in the direction Jinwoo was walking in from. But, let alone a single summon, he couldn't even spot a hair of the summoned creature anywhere near the Korean man. He stood there shivering while thinking that, if he were tasked with the role of inviting people over to his nation, he'd never, ever invite someone like that. There could be one of two reasons. Either the American Hunter Bureau had no clue the true depths of that Korean hunter's power, or they were completely sure that such a power would never be used against them. Jinwoo tilted his head this way and that, prompting Yu Jinho to take a look behind him and ask, "Did you spot someone you know, Hyung Nim?" "No, it's just that some foreigner was looking at me over and over again." Yu Jinho chuckled as if such a thing was nothing to fret about. "Hyung Nim, your stories have spread out far and wide to the rest of the world, so surely, you must have lots of fans by now. Maybe he wanted your autograph, Hyung Nim." Well, that guy seemed to be too exceptional a hunter for someone hunting around for autographs, though. Jinwoo smirked and continued on with his steps. Beside himself and Yu Jinho, 2 more people were accompanying them during this overseas trip. Section Chief Woo Jincheol coming along as the show of support from the Korean Hunters Association, as well as a female association employee tagging along as an interpreter. Woo Jincheol briefly studied Jinwoo's reactions and replied, his face reddening slightly. I am tasked with providing security to Seong Hunter Nim. What did you say? Bodyguard of him. Who did you say you're guarding now? Jinwoo could see that even Woo Jincheol's ears were getting red now. Over there. Looks like they are here to escort us. Adam White was standing near the entrance of the airport sporting a cool business suit with his blonde hair slicked back, his face full of a bright, welcoming smile. As if to prove that Jinwoo's guess was correct, the American agent quickly made his way over to the group. The American agent spoke with a cheery voice. We were waiting for your arrival, Seong Hunter Nim. I seem to remember hearing that you were responsible for the Asia branch of the Bureau. Was I wrong, Mr. White? Adam White scratched the back of his head and continued on. I was, until recently. Now, I'm responsible for matters involving you, Seong Hunter Nim. Excluding Seong Hunter Nim, the remainder of your group will be guided to your hotel. Adam White then shifted his gaze over to Jinwoo. And, do you mind accompanying us to a different location for a little while, Seong Jinwoo Hunter Nim? Was this about his father? Jinwoo's glare became icy cold in an instant. Adam White must have felt the temperature suddenly drop, because he quickly waved his hand around. It's definitely a story that'll benefit you, Seong Hunter Nim. Haven't we already clarified what the Hunter Bureau's opinion regarding you is? They wanted to maintain a good relationship with him. Are the topics we'll be discussing a secret? A few topics to be discussed indeed fall under the top secret category, yes. So, where are we going now? We're heading straight to the Hunter Bureau's HQ. In all honesty, we're currently under serious pressure at the moment. One of the 2 American citizenship-carrying special authority rank hunters had been met with an untimely, grisly death, Christopher Reed. The American Hunter Bureau had been hurting far greater than Jinwoo could ever imagine. For now, things are calm on the surface because we haven't publicly announced the murder of Christopher Reed yet. But soon, we'll start the process of securing other hunters who can substitute for him, and spare no efforts in doing so. Am I one of the candidates you're thinking of? Adam White nodded his head. Jinwoo liked the fact the other party was being open and honest here. Of course, that didn't mean he'd entertain the once refused offer one more time. This is a completely different offer, however. In the photos, there was the worst calamity in the history of mankind. The raid that no one wished to remember in history. The dragon, Kamish. Indeed, these photos documented the process of the raid of the first and the last dragon ever to appear on this planet. The world's best hunters had gathered and fought a battle to their death, and only 5 managed to survive until the end. As you know, the value of a rune stone is proportional to the power of the monster the stone was extracted from. He tapped on his phone's screen one more time to bring up the next photo, and it showed a rune stone sleeping quietly inside a glass case surrounded by layers upon layers of walls and security. It was none other than Kamish's rune stone. Rather obviously, that was an item where its value couldn't even be imagined in monetary terms. Never mind getting one's hands on it, regardless of the price one was willing to pay. It might possess possibly the greatest skill ever to exist. We're currently searching for a new owner of this rune stone. Adam White sneaked a glance at Jinwoo's direction. The photo. Can you go back, please? Excuse me. I want to see the photos before this one. Adam White tilted his head slightly, but still, he scrolled back to the previous photos as per Jinwoo's request. Right there. Adam White's flipping hands came to a stop over a certain photo. Jinwoo pointed to the corner of this particular image and spoke in a low, hushed voice. Where is this? Jinwoo's heart began madly pounding away. Could it be that America has been storing Kamish's intact corpse until now? Well, yes, we have, but Adam White couldn't really understand Jinwoo's current reaction at all. They were talking about a rune stone that all hunters alive in this world would drool over non-stop, yet he didn't show any interest in such a valuable article and began talking about a dead monster instead. However, Jinwoo's attitude was far too serious to steer the topic of this conversation back on the right course. Jinwoo pointed at the photo again. Where is this place? Let's go there right away. Pardon me, I've been willing to humor the requests of the Hunter Bureau until now. I'm pretty sure that I have the right to demand this much from you. Adam White didn't expect the situation to go down in this direction and couldn't hide his fluster anymore. However, he also realized that strictly speaking, this was not a bad result at all. Between Hunter Sung Jinwoo and the Hunter Bureau that Adam was working for, anyone could figure out that the party desperately needing the other side's cooperation was, of course, the latter. The Hunter Bureau was trying to attract Hunter Sung Jinwoo's interest. That's why they tried with Madame Selner's ability initially, and when that fell through, they resorted to using Kamish's runestone to rouse the young Korean hunter's interest. But then, the spark was lit from an unlikely source instead. This was at once a crisis and an opportunity for Adam White. They said I was free to use any method, didn't they? Actually, even I do not know where Kamish's corpse is being stored at the moment. The extent of my knowledge is what the higher-ups are prepared to let me know, unfortunately. However, if it's you making this demand, then I believe the higher-ups will give the go-ahead pretty easily. I'll have to make a report anyway, so do you mind waiting for their reply for a little while? Jinwoo's expression brightened instantly. The odds of the skill shadow extraction failing would increase proportionally to how long the target had been dead for. And Kamish was killed off 8 years ago. The odds of failure were just simply too high. The possibility of bothering a lot of people, not to mention wasting their precious time for what could ultimately turn out to be nothing, was pretty high, too. However, how should he know without giving it a shot in the first place? Even if the odds were extremely low, even if there was only a chance of 10,000 in 1, no, 10 million in 1, the moment he somehow succeeds in extracting the dragon's shadow, he'd end up with possibly the most powerful shadow soldier ever in history. Just thinking about it made his heart madly pound away. Even if he failed, the only thing he'd lose would be his time. When compared to what he stood to gain if he succeeded, well, this was one gamble worth taking, that's for sure. As long as the Americans permitted it in the first place, of course. Jinwoo quickly asked Adam White. We're on our way to the Hunter Bureau, right? That's correct. Since I'm going to wait anyway, why don't I go there and wait instead? Huh? Jinwoo's overly passionate interest caused Adam White to form an expression of a man not knowing whether to rejoice or be saddened. The director of the Hunter Bureau also formed a similar expression as well. He shifted his head to the side just in case, and sure enough, his deputy right next to him was also forming the same sort of an expression. Seong Hunter Nim is in the building with us. The director had to confirm it one last time. Adam White wordlessly nodded his head. But what about the rune stone? Didn't he say anything about it? They decided that using up Kamish's rune stone was worth it if it meant they got to reel Sung Jinwoo into the US of A. Well, a hunter with an American passport getting stronger was pretty much the same thing as America getting stronger at the end of the day. No, sir. During our trip, he almost never spoke about the rune stone once. This is troublesome. The director could only rub his chin after hearing Adam White's answer. Both Thomas Andre, as well as Sung Jinwoo, it always proved to be so difficult to predict how these hunters standing at the apex would behave next. He even thought that possibly, one's way of thinking would undergo a drastic change after becoming a top-ranked hunter in the world. So, what he really wants is to view the dragon's corpse. Yes, sir. Adam White nodded his head, his expression full of confidence. He wasn't feeling bad at all at the moment. From the get-go, his role was to bring Jinwoo to the negotiating table and have him take part in it. And with Jinwoo willingly walking into the Hunter Bureau HQ, Adam White had pretty much fulfilled the role he was tasked with. I wish to discuss this matter with the deputy director first. Please leave the office for a little while. Understood, sir. What do you think is the reason for that man wanting to see Kamish's remains? I wonder. Well, one thing we can be sure of is that he's not a tourist. It's likely that Kamish's remains possess a greater value than its rune stone to him. The value of a skill was truly unimaginable. Many hunters at the top flight would not hold back on their cash reserves in order to purchase a rune stone they needed, even if it cost tens of thousands, hundreds, even millions of dollars. No, a skill was basically the strength a hunter possessed, and that strength was directly linked to said hunter's survival. Even then, seeing that corpse once is much more beneficial than getting his hands on a rune stone. Is that it? The thoughts forming inside the director's head was then articulated into words by his deputy. It seems likely that it's related somehow to Seong Hunter Nim's ability. Wasn't his ability only applicable to monsters he killed himself? After he killed ant monsters, ant soldiers were added to his arsenal, and after he hunted down the giant-type monsters, giant soldiers made their appearance next. The more battles he fought, the stronger hunter Sung Jinwoo would become. That was precisely the reason why the Hunter Bureau wished to make Jinwoo an American hunter at any cost. However, what if he could create summons out of corpses of monsters that had died a long time ago? And more importantly, the ones he didn't even kill in the first place. Oh my god. The deputy director's eyes grew extremely large. He's planning to make Kamish into one of his summons. His voice trembled uncontrollably. That man was thinking of turning the worst calamity humanity had faced into his summoned creature. No wonder he couldn't care any less about a rune stone. The director resolutely shook his head. That cannot be allowed. We simply can't let one individual wield that much power. But, sir, if we refuse to accept his demand this time, it'd become far harder to maintain an amicable relationship with him moving forward. Jinwoo being in the Hunter Bureau's HQ to wait for an answer easily showed how high his expectation was. The director's forehead creased up greatly as he fell into deep contemplation. If their guesses were correct and Hunter Sung Jinwoo did really make Kamish into one of his summons, then his powers would become impossible to control for any one nation or organization. His summons revived right away even after getting destroyed, didn't they? What if Kamish possessing the infinite regenerative power appeared as an enemy? Indeed, the associated risk was simply too heavy for a chance to maintain a good relationship with a lone hunter. The director asked one more question before he could make his decision. We have Thomas Andre, a special authority rank hunter, as well as nearly 50 rank S hunters recruited from various parts of the globe. Is there really a reason why we should continue pursuing Sung Jinwoo? Actually, sir, the deputy hesitated for a little bit before making up his mind. He had been delaying making a report because its content was not verified yet, but he decided to bring it up anyway. There is a good chance that Sung Jinwoo is a brand new special authority rank hunter. Sir, I shall guide him personally. This could be a very good opportunity to witness and observe his ability from up close. The deputy's expression brightened up a notch as he also stood up from his seat. Jinwoo climbed aboard the special elevator with the guidance of the Bureau's director. I wish to speak to you in a more relaxing environment, but I'm sure this is what you want, yes. Adam White translated the director's words into Korean almost at the same time. Jinwoo nodded his head to say yes. The elevator carrying the director, his deputy, Adam White, and finally Jinwoo himself speedily climbed down to the basement floors. To think, they'd build the Hunter Bureau's HQ on the very spot where Kamish had been killed. Should Jinwoo chalk this one up to America being, well, America? In any case, he was told that the remains of the dragon Kamish would be stored intact forever in order to honor and remember the lives of every hunter who valiantly sacrificed themselves to stop the worst calamity in human history. When the door with several layers of strict security finally opened up, a chilling breeze brushed past his cheeks. No, that wasn't a cold breeze. Although faint, he could feel magical energy infused in the air. There was no need to even wonder just who this magic energy belonged to. His heart palpitated hard upon realizing that his odds were not zero after all. Even though it had been 8 years, the remains still emitted some amount of magic energy. So, just how incredible would its power be after turning into a shadow soldier? Eventually, his steps came to a halt in front of the truly massive open dome brightly illuminated by countless spotlights overhead. And there it was, the remains of Kamish. The body was perfectly preserved as it were. Exactly as it was from that day it managed to kill several hundreds of elite hunters before also getting killed off by the 5 remaining special authority rank hunters. The Red Dragon. Even Jinwoo momentarily forgot to breathe at the creature's truly overwhelming presence. Actually, all electricity used in the Hunter Bureau's HQ comes from Kamish's magic crystal. The director proudly explained where all the energy used to preserve Kamish's remains came from. However, Jinwoo's ears were not picking up on any of his words. His gaze was already firmly fixed on one spot. Seeing that fervent gaze, the director realized that the moment had come. Hunter Nim, are you satisfied now? Everyone, back away. Jinwoo spoke to the people behind him, causing the staff members to raise a noisy fuss. Director, what is that man trying to do? Kamish's remains is our country's national treasure. Too bad for them, though. The director loudly reprimanded them right away. I already gave my permission. In that instant, all unnecessary noises disappeared. Before they came down here, they had concluded their conversation. Jinwoo made a promise that nothing would happen to the remains. And just like how the deputy had done, the director decided to trust Jinwoo's words as well. Let us observe what will happen next. As Jinwoo had instructed, the crowd retreated to a faraway distance. In the meantime, he extended his hands out towards Kamish. And then, he quietly spoke up. Rise up. As if it was waiting for that, a message popped up in his view along with a ting. Jinwoo's expression didn't change. He calmly moved on and attempted the extraction for the second time. Rise up. He wished to take control of the greatest monster there ever was. His voice, now containing his desire, echoed and reverberated throughout the interior of the underground dome. Rise up. When that happened, all the spotlights located on the ceiling suddenly began flickering. And from somewhere unknown, a streak of brilliantly chilling wind blew in. Screams of a dragon roared out from some place that was impossible to locate, and caused almost everyone present in the dome to cover their ears in a hurry. The only person who didn't lose his cool in this chaos was Jinwoo, and no one else. He quickly spotted Kamish's shadow spreading wide on the floor. Did I succeed? It was then his eyes opened super wide. A certain something was slowly rising up from the shadow. The rising shape enveloped in the rising plumes of black smoke was undeniably a dragon. What the hell is that? The staff members freaked out and took several steps back. Even the director and his deputy, who already had a pretty good idea on what Jinwoo's ability was like, forgot to breathe in that moment. The dragon loudly roared into the air before discovering the human by its feet and stopped its bellowing. The Shadow Sovereign was the sole existence capable of dragging back a soul that had fallen to the pits of the abyss. That was why the dragon needed only one glance to recognize Jinwoo's identity. The king of the dead, in the body of a human, was staring right back at the creature with dignified eyes. The authority of a sovereign that he possessed sent a powerful chill through the dragon's body. But that only lasted for a brief moment. The creature's eyes shifted to a location a bit further away. And that's when it discovered the stupid-looking humans and their jaws agape as they stared right back at the gigantic creature. Humans. It immediately recalled the bottomless malice it held against humanity right up until its death. And that also helped the dragon to remember the terrible pain it felt as it drew its very last breath. Humans must be killed. That's where its rationality got cut off. The dragon raised its body up as crimson light filled its eyes. The air of the underground storage area began boiling right up. Oh my god. The director of the Hunter Bureau spat out a shocked gasp. This dome had been designed to accommodate the dragon's sleeping figure. So, the whole space seemed wholly inadequate the moment the creature raised his head high. They could now see the blood-red light gather within the open maw of the dragon. A massive red light. Both the director and his deputy had seen the video footage countless times, and they knew what that red light cluster was supposed to do. Adam White urgently grabbed the director's shoulder and shouted out, "Sir, you need to evacuate. That's Kamish's breath. You think we'll be safe because we escaped somewhere." It was rather clear that, once the red light exploded out, then forget about the underground storage area. The entire Hunter Bureau building would completely be obliterated in the blink of an eye. The red glow created out of pure magic energy finally transformed into a sphere of blinding flames. The dragon was finally finished with its preparation to erase all humans standing before it. Just before it could spit out its ultra-high temperature breath, though, Jinwoo roared out at the top of his lungs, "That's enough." The director and his entourage all raised their arms reflexively to shield their eyes from the bright, blinding light. However, after hearing Jinwoo's call, they all slowly lowered their arms. They thought that everything was over once that light filled up the inside of the dome. As it turned out, they were far too hasty in making that judgment, however. But how can this even be possible? The flames within the jaw of the enraged Kamish were dying out gradually. Did the dragon that melted away the lives of several hundred elite hunters with a single breath stop its attack because of just one command issued by Hunter Sung Jinwoo? The magic crystal embedded in your head has been removed a long time ago. You have no more reason to follow the orders of the rulers. The deputy director standing right next to his boss shuddered from a nasty shock and hurriedly asked, Is Hunter Sung Jinwoo actually speaking in the monster language right now? Even though I'm looking at it, I can't figure out how to interpret this situation. Meanwhile, the dragon was quite surprised by the fact that it willingly obeyed the new sovereign's order. The dragon then lowered its tall posture and paid its respect to Jinwoo. The humans, flinching constantly from each and every movement of the oversized creature, finally spat out lengthy sighs of relief. The dragon lowered its head as if to kiss the floor and spoke. There was a great deal of respect in the creature's voice that still growled like that of most monsters. Jinwoo slowly approached the dragon and placed his hand on the nose of the creature. It silently closed its eyes and enjoyed the warmth of its new lord. The sensation that couldn't be described in mere words traveled from its nose tip to the rest of its body. Jinwoo also sensed that the dragon's mood was lifting up. He had barely managed to calm his pounding heart by then, but now it was racing hard again. Kamish, the dragon Kamish has really become my shadow soldier. A broad smile automatically floated up on his face. Adam White's jaw, meanwhile, had been hanging slack from this unbelievable scene right before his eyes. But then, he discovered something even more incredulous and hurriedly confirmed it with the deputy director. "Yes, sir. Is the dragon really wagging its tail?" The deputy director thought such a thing would be completely illogical and shifted his eyes to where Kamish's tail was, only for a pained groan to escape from his mouth. Jesus H. Christ. Jinwoo lifted his hand away and the dragon's tail stopped wagging, as well. The name Kamish was given to the dragon for the convenience of humans. Jinwoo was pondering what new name he should give to his latest addition to the ranks of his shadow soldiers, before abruptly recalling the words it used to greet him just now. You said you used to serve the Dragon Emperor, right? The dragon continued using a polite tone of voice. I'm the king of the dead, the shadow sovereign. And then there was the king of the giants, the sovereign of the beginning. Jinwoo realized that the former owner the dragon served had to be one of the 9 sovereigns the system mentioned before. However, that wasn't important right now. No, what he wanted to know was the creature's real name, so he could use that one, too. Alright, then. What was your original na? Jinwoo couldn't continue his words, though. His eyes looking up at the creature began quaking rather violently, like a sand castle being scattered away by a gust of wind. The dragon's body was slowly disintegrating right before him. What? Jinwoo's perception stat communicated with the dragon's current emotion, and it was one of pure sorrow, not even a hint of falsehood contained within. The dragon was truly lamenting this moment, even if it was the power of a shadow sovereign. The gap of 8 years proved to be far too wide to bridge. The dragon had been trapped for too long within the bottom of the abyss, and as a result, its magical energy had become too weak and began scattering away in the air. Jinwoo couldn't accept this and desperately cried out to the system. But the DMN thing remained utterly silent, as always. Just like how he could sense the dragon's emotions, the creature could sense his as well. It spoke from the depths of its heart. To the king who didn't want to lose his soldier, the dragon left behind one final advice. As the dragon's body became completely blurry and indistinct, even its voice grew further and further away. And then, deathly silence descended on the dome. Like a shifting mirage, the dragon's shadow disappeared. All the spotlights flickering precariously above all reverted back to working normally again. The director had been holding his breath as he witnessed this spectacle. Once the dragon was gone, he quickly looked at the corpse of the creature. Absolutely nothing had happened to Kamish's remains. He felt as if he had been dreaming until now, and that left him utterly dazed and confused. But, then again, if what happened was simply a bad dream, Hunter Sung Jinwoo wouldn't be standing around making such an empty, despondent expression right now. Jinwoo couldn't rip his gaze away from the spot where the dragon's shadow used to stand. Eventually, the system message popped up in his view alongside with the familiar TTI ring. Mechanical beeps continued to go off in his head. Today would be his first time hating the sounds of continuous TTI ring going off in his head. Jinwoo's tightly clenched fists trembled ever so slightly. In his rage, he punched the ground hard. For a brief moment there, the entire building shook around just a little. Jinwoo returned to the hotel. Because he was in such a gloomy mood, Adam White was unable to say a single thing during the trip, even though he was tasked with escorting him here. Jinwoo figured that he might as well sleep today's events off, and was about to head towards his assigned room. But then, Woo Jincheol was coming down to the hotel's lobby just then and discovered Jinwoo here. The chief of the monitoring division quickly made his way. Seong Hunter Nim, why couldn't we get a hold of you? Oh, that. I was temporarily in a place where no calls could get through. Outsiders were not permitted to carry their personal phones when inside the HQ of the Hunter Bureau. There was no exception to this rule even if you were an important guest. Woo Jincheol scratched the side of his head and asked, "Did you get to meet Yu Jin Ho Hunter Nim, then?" Almost right away, an expression of confusion formed on Woo Jincheol's face. "But, I thought Yu Hunter Nim received a message from you and that's why he went out. The message said that you were waiting for him at the Hunter Bureau's building. That's where I'm coming from right now, so what are you even talking about here?" Adam White was listening to this conversation from the side and quickly confirmed the fact for them. There was no Yu Jin Ho Hunter Nim in the visitor's log. "Excuse me, but how can that be? About 2 hours ago, a rank S hunter came here to fetch him personally." Jinwoo quickly butted in there. "Which rank S hunter are you talking about?" "It was Hunter H. Wang Dong-soo. He actually came to the hotel." Jinwoo couldn't understand why he suddenly felt this ominous sensation the moment he heard the name H. Wang Dong-soo, which was in stark contrast to the other 2 men who didn't seem to know what was going on here. Is this because of the perception stat? Seeing that the light in Jinwoo's eyes had become unusually tense, Adam White quickly pulled his phone out again. "I shall call H. Wang Dong-soo Hunter Nim's guild right now." Several ringtones later, the manager in charge of Scavenger Guild's high-ranking hunters, a woman named Laura, answered Adam White's call. He briefly introduced himself and explained the current situation. Surprisingly, though, the voice coming from the phone's speaker was calm and collected, which went completely against Adam White's expectations. He thought that she might be as flustered as he'd be, but no. "Has Seong Jinwoo Hunter Nim learned of this situation yet?" Adam White only said that Hunter Hwang Dong-soo had taken Yu Jin-ho away, yet Sung Jinwoo's name suddenly popped out of nowhere. In that case, we'll find out as quickly as possible. And that's where the call came to an abrupt end. Jinwoo listened to the conversation without saying a single word, and when the call ended, headed straight to the hotel's exit. Seong Hunter Nim. The Scavenger Guild said they will find out, so we should wait for. Adam White hurriedly chased after Jinwoo and came out of the hotel's exit. But the Korean hunter was long gone by then. What the hell? Where did he go? Adam White stared at the street with a troubled expression on his face, not knowing what to do next. Jinwoo sought out a deserted back alley away from the crowded main street and undid stealth. A rank S hunter using his name showed up and took Yu Jin-ho away. But then, the guild this guy worked for didn't even try to get a detailed explanation of what happened and simply stated that they would find out before one-sidedly ending the call. Something bad is happening. And that thing should be related somehow to why that guild staff member on the phone mentioned his name right away. Jinwoo's expression hardened as he issued a new command. If that guy was looking for trouble, then he certainly picked a very bad day for it. Find him. If his 1,000+ soldiers dispersed throughout the city and searched for Yu Jin-ho's magic energy signature, then finding him shouldn't take that long. 1,000 shadows breaking off from below Jinwoo's feet quickly scattered in all directions. Thomas Andre scanned the interior of the apartment with a hardened face. Inside this luxurious apartment where Hwang Dong-soo should have been staying, the two hunters assigned to keep an eye on him were lying face down with foam bubbling out of their mouths. Tusk. He clicked his tongue and removed his trademark sunglasses. His deeply crumpled expression was finally revealed for all to see, and the complexions of his subordinates searching through the apartment paled instantly. Thomas Andre gnashed his teeth and issued a new order in a low, growling voice. Hwang Dong-soo, find him, before Seong Jinwoo does. No matter what, we must find him first. Jinwoo now stood on top of a skyscraper that afforded him a view of the entire city. His eyesight, enhanced to extreme heights through his perception stat, began scanning the city from the streets right below the skyscraper all the way to the residential homes located in the far-off distance. While doing that, his hearing was focused on the noises his shadow soldiers picked up. Pretty much all of them were useless idle talks. Aside from those, the horns of passing cars, noises from TV speakers, cats meowing, splashes of water from bathrooms, etc. All sorts of sounds made by a living city entered Jinwoo's ears. Sweat drops formed on his forehead as he utilized his 5 senses, plus the 6th one to detect magic energy to their fullest extent. I wouldn't be going through this much trouble if I just left the shadow soldier in Jin-ho's shadow. Didn't someone say this before? It was already too late the moment you start regretting it. The ant soldier he had inserted in Yu Jin-ho's shadow just in case had been used to get to Chairman Yu Myung-han's hospital room. Jinwoo became really busy after that, and since he was planning to accompany the kid during their trip to the US, he had forgotten about inserting a replacement. And the end result from all of that is him working his ass off like this. Kamish's shadow is gone, and Jin-ho's whereabouts are unknown. Veins popped up one at a time on Jinwoo's forehead. His already gloomy mood had now hit rock bottom and was about to convert into a storm cloud. Could it be? They are not in the city at all. To Jinwoo, Yu Jin-ho might be a cute little brother, but the truth was, the kid was still a melee-type rank D hunter. Any all group of regular people trying to jump him wouldn't work at all. If the car supposedly heading for the Hunter Bureau's HQ suddenly drove out of the city limits, Yu Jin-ho would have realized something was amiss and started resisting his kidnappers. The sole problem was, the B-starred kidnapping Jin-ho was a rank S hunter. Anything new? His subordinate shook his head with a darkened complexion. No, sir. The frowns on Thomas Andre's forehead grew deeper by a level. Tracking Hwang Dong-soo through his phone was impossible since he had switched the device off. The places he frequented had been searched thoroughly by the guild's members, but unfortunately, nothing worthy of note had been uncovered so far. It seemed that Mr. Hwang had been planning for this day for quite some time. Isn't he scared of dying? No, Mr. Hwang was also a rank S hunter. He should be aware of the differences in strengths between himself and Seong Jinwoo, at the bare minimum. Even then, he still went ahead and did something so monumentally stupid, because he probably had something he could place his bets on. He knows that I'll step up on his behalf. Well, that fool wasn't wrong with his calculation. Regardless of whether that man would cause another incident in the future or not, he'd still remain as Scavenger Guild's asset. It was then, his phone suddenly began ringing. Thomas Andre had been waiting too anxiously for news, regardless of what nature it took, and hurriedly yanked the receiver up. We might be able to track down Mr. Hwang's location, sir. The voice on the line belonged to Laura. Thomas Andre shot up from his chair. How? She knew what he was feeling right now, so Laura didn't pause for a second before she quickly carried on with her explanation. I asked for assistance from the Hunter Bureau and was able to analyze Mr. H. Wang's movement patterns for the last 3 months. I found out that there were a total of 3 times when he broke away from his usual area of activity and moved to an unknown location. Very good. Thomas Andre nodded his head. Rather unexpectedly, they were able to find a clue sooner than he thought. Send everyone to that location. I'll be on my way there as well. Understood, sir. Thomas Andre was about to end the call there but hesitated slightly before raising the receiver up again. By the way, how did you convince the old codgers in the Hunter Bureau, Laura? The Hunter Bureau had a habit of recording the locations and movement patterns of all the hunters via GPS attached to the Hunter issue smartphones. Of course, they were not an organization known for giving away their information willy-nilly. Even if it was the Scavenger Guild making the request, the approval process should take several hours at a bare minimum. But to think they spat out H. Wang Dong-su's records just like that. This didn't sound logical at all. Thomas Andre couldn't help but get curious about the methods Laura employed here to convince them. However, her answer was rather simple in nature. I only told them that if we don't locate Hunter H. Wang Dong-su as quickly as possible, then there's a chance that Mr. Sung Jinwoo and you, Master, might collide against each other. Every single guild member has begun moving, sir. All 100 of them. I just found out that the raid they were getting ready for has been cancelled as well, sir. All of their hunters are being mobilized to go somewhere. What on earth? Just what is going on here? Adam White couldn't easily open his mouth here. A rank S hunter from the Scavenger Guild used Hunter Sung Jinwoo's name and kidnapped Yu Jin-ho. And then, both Sung Jinwoo and the Scavenger Guild had begun mobilizing. This couldn't have been something simple at all. Not to mention, with the entirety of the Scavenger Guild being mobilized like that, it could only mean that Thomas Andre was behind the move. The Goliath, Thomas Andre has made his move as well. Sir, is this really all right? A man looked at Yu Jin-ho lying unconscious on the ground and worriedly asked. H. Wang Dong-su to his side nodded his head. Look, I'm not gonna do anything bad to him, alright. I just want to ask him about this one thing. That's all. The guild master Thomas Andre warned him. He said not to provoke Sung Jinwoo. However, H. Wang Dong-su never planned to provoke that man from the get-go anyway. Why? Because there was one other person besides Sung Jinwoo that could answer the question burning a hole in his head. That was why. The question of what happened on that day, the events that took place within the dungeon where his older brother H. Wang Dong-seok, Sung Jinwoo, and Yu Jin-ho entered together. H. Wang Dong-su promised Yu Jin-ho that he'd be freed as soon as he answered that question truthfully. Unfortunately, Yu Jin-ho didn't squeak a word out right until he ended up in such a pathetic, wretched state. The longer Yu Jin-ho kept his mouth shut, the stronger H. Wang Dong-su's convictions became, though. All he wanted to hear was one thing. If he could just hear that one sentence, he'd no longer have any business with Yu Jin-ho. But then, with what balls was a punk with a small physique and a naive-looking face keeping his mouth shut against a rank S hunter? His courage alone was worth praising him for. Oi, wake up. Would this be the 4th time the kid fainted and was woken back up again? H. Wang Dong-su's irritation grew somewhat at Yu Jin-ho's tenacious endurance and his kick became a little more vicious than before. I said, get the hell up. Tao. Yu Jin-ho curled up on the floor as he spat out the pooled blood in his mouth. The third man of H. Wang Dong-su's group began cackling out. Still, this kid's supposed to be a tanker, wasn't he? He sure can withstand some punishment, can't he? A regular person would have died by now. H. Wang Dong-su's face now reflected no emotion whatsoever as he grabbed the back of Yu Jin-ho's head to yank it up. Listen here, I don't want to kill you. You see this guy over here laughing his ass off. Let me tell you, he's a healer with some considerable skill. He'll bring you back just before you are about to die. Yu Jin-ho's blurry gaze was directed to the cackling man, and the hunter grinned brightly and wagged his finger around as if to greet the kid. This here is a factory that closed down over 5 years ago. You can scream all you want, but no one's gonna hear you. After grabbing and fixing Yu Jin-ho's head in the place, H. Wang Dong-su brought his own face right up against the kid's nose. Their locked gazes grew closer and closer, which means you will suffer from intense pain forever. That is, until you tell me what I want to hear. When they got close enough for their noses to touch, H. Wang Dong-su formed a toothy grin. So, how about it? Do you feel like talking now? Yu Jin-ho's busted lips bobbed up and down but his voice was too small and even H. Wang Dong-su couldn't hear it. What did you say? H. Wang Dong-su tilted his head slightly in confusion and brought his ear near the kid. When the ear was only a few millimeters away from his lips, Yu Jin-ho whispered softly. FCK off. Hwang Dong-soo's expression crumpled instantly. He slammed the side of Yu Jin-ho's head on the ground and panted like an angry bull. Oi, did you just kill him? The healer's brows shot up and he quickly checked for Yu Jin-ho's pulse. After confirming that the kid's heart was still beating, the healer spat out a sigh of relief. Still, there was no doubt that this young and weak hunter's life would have been cut short if Hwang Dong-soo had used a little more of his strength. Mr. Hwang, be more careful, will ya? I don't want to become an accomplice to a murderer just because of money. Alright, I'll be more careful. Hwang Dong-soo acknowledged his mistake. Was it because of the precariousness of the situation? The man who couldn't hide his worries from the get-go decided to persuade Hwang Dong-soo. Let's just call it a day and move on. Haven't you found out all you can by now? What are you talking about? We're only getting started. The corners of Hwang Dong-soo's lips arched to form a sinister smile. His vicious, cruel nature was pretty much the carbon copy of his older brother. What could it be? The man's eyes narrowed to a slit. And then, he became surprised by his discovery and pointed in that direction. Hwang Dong-soo and the healer both raised their heads to take a look. There it was, a high orc kitted out in black armor standing over yonder. An orc. Hwang Dong-soo stood up. The healer checking Yu Jin-ho's condition also got up from the ground. Is there a dungeon break happening nearby? Hwang Dong-soo shook his head. If that was the case, their surroundings should have become a pandemonium by now. That wasn't the only bizarre thing, though. The high orc was actually shivering. As a matter of fact, its facial expression contained terror. It looked as if the creature was barely holding back tears threatening to burst out at any moment. And all four of its limbs were quivering from pure fright, too. Mr. Hwang, I think that thing is terrified of you. I don't have time to fool around like this. White rays of light began coagulating on Hwang Dong-soo's clenched fist. He didn't know where this orc came from, but now that he had discovered it, of course, he wouldn't let it just walk away. Hwang Dong-soo strode right up to the orc and raised his fist so he could blow the monster's head clean off. Before he could do that, though, the heavy voice of a man suddenly called out from somewhere. Exchange. The TV in the living room was showing the scenes of yet another accident that took place within a dungeon. Those seem to happen frequently nowadays, although no events that could be called truly enormous happened so far. The number of hunters dying during the raids was on the rise lately, according to the news broadcast. I wonder, will my boy be okay? His mother, watching the news, recalled Jinwoo and whispered to herself in a worried voice. Didn't matter how excellent a hunter her son was, there was no helping with a mother worrying about her child's safety. Baru, hiding within the shadows to protect this home as per Jinwoo's instruction, heard her whispers. Oh, the mother of my king. If my liege meets with an accident that even he can't survive, then no one in this world can. Baru did his best to suppress the words trying to jump out of his mouth. Obviously, he couldn't surprise the mother of his liege needlessly, now could he? As his reward, he'd have to suffer in silent frustration all by himself. The scene shown on TV changed yet again to that of a certain American airport as the news related to the International Guild Conference played out. And then, Jinwoo appeared on the screen as he stepped foot into the airport. She saw her son walking forward as he was swarmed by the constant explosions of camera flashes. The worried look on her face was soon replaced by a contented smile. Jin-ah, your brother's on TV. This wouldn't be the first time, but regardless, seeing her appa on the TV screen remained a mystifying and welcoming viewing experience to her, even now. But the thing was, both Jin-ah and her mom had no idea. They simply had no idea that there was someone very close, cheering on even more passionately than they did while watching the TV screen. Oh, my king. Baru's deeply moved eyes were firmly fixed on the screen as he watched the clip being played out. But then, a powerful chill began invading his body out of the blue. Literally, without warning, his body hidden in the shadows began trembling non-stop. This sensation, hadn't he felt something similar to this in the past? When was that? Baru combed through his memories and finally recalled that moment. My king has been truly enraged. In the city of Busan, the Night Order Guild was in the middle of preparing for a raid. There's been a lot of accidents happening in dungeons lately, so everyone, keep your wits about you at all times. Let's make sure that not a single person gets injured today. Yes, sir. The guild members had become rather docile after experiencing a raid together with Jinwoo's summoned creatures, and now they even sounded properly disciplined as well. It was at that moment something strange happened. The vice master of the guild, Jeong Yun-ti, was standing behind Park Jong-soo to nod his head and provide suitable reactions to his boss's words. But he discovered something and his eyes nearly popped out of his sockets. Park Jong-soo hurriedly looked behind him. What happened? Jeong Yun-ti pointed to the ground and alternated his gaze between Park Jong-soo and the shadow beneath his boss's feet. H. Hyung Nim, your shadow. The shadow on the ground was vibrating. Jeong Yun-T discovered that Park Jong-soo was glaring at him with narrowed eyes and stopped talking right there, and then, "Hey, Yun-T, how many times have I told you not to touch booze before a raid? And no, Hyung Nim, I haven't had a drop of the stuff today, but your shadow, it really did vibrate, like it was alive." Park Jong-soo stared at Jeong Yun-T with criticizing eyes and spat out a long groan. "This won't do. Take a day off today. Hyung Nim, I'm telling you the truth. Okay, everyone, time to go inside. The Night Order Guild, let's do our best today, too." Just as Jeong Yun-T's voice that protested his innocence resounded in the air, unbelievable sightings of shadows trembling streamed in from all the spots where Jinwoo had left behind his shadow soldiers. Shadows trembled noticeably as if they didn't care for the presence of witnesses or not. But then again, the shadow soldiers had no choice but to shiver from the emotion of pure rage their lord was feeling at that moment. Exchange. The High Orc soldier disappeared, only to be replaced by Jinwoo. Hwang Dong-soo's group froze up like a mouse confronted by a snake the moment this unexpected intruder entered the stage completely unannounced. Meanwhile, Jinwoo simply strode past the stunned rank S hunter as if the latter didn't even exist, and stopped before Yoo Jin-ho. No one said anything, yet the two Americans standing near the unconscious kid quickly stepped back at the same time, as if they agreed to do so beforehand. After summoning out a healing potion, Jinwoo began easing a little bit of liquid down into Yoo Jin-ho's mouth. Unfortunately, the message saying it was impossible to heal the kid's wounds popped up in his view along with the familiar TTI ring. The divine water of life was meant to heal diseases and illnesses. It couldn't help in matters of physical injuries like this. It was the same principle of healing magic not being able to cure illnesses. "I need healing magic." Too bad. The only shadow soldier capable of using healing magic, Baru, was currently back in Korea house sitting. Even if Jinwoo recalled him now, who knows just how long he'd take to get here. "Is either one of you a healer?" Hearing the word healer, the healer-type hunter ended up reflexively nodding his head. Jinwoo pointed to Yoo Jin-ho. "Heal him, now." The healer's gaze shifted over to Hwang Dong-soo. The latter shook his head. Jinwoo carefully lowered Yoo Jin-ho's upper torso back down and stood up. "Final warning. Heal him." The healer's gaze shifted back to Hwang Dong-soo again, but the answer remained the same. So, the healer stared straight at Jinwoo and the corners of his lips arched up. "You see, dude, you should talk to the boss first before." He didn't get to finish his sentence. Kaboom. Just like how Hwang Dong-soo had done to Yoo Jin-ho, Jinwoo slammed the healer's head on the ground. It happened so fast that no one saw his movements. Jinwoo shifted his gaze to the second of the Americans. "Are you a healer?" This man finally confirmed the face of Jinwoo walking closer to him and his jaw began trembling in shock. Sung Jinwoo. Hunter Sung Jinwoo. He backpedaled in panic and began glaring at Hwang Dong-soo before shouting out, "Mr. Hwang Dong-soo, you promised that this matter had nothing to do with Sung Jinwoo. What the FCK is this? What is this SHT? I ask you if you are a healer or not. And no, I'm not. I'm just..." His answer was also abruptly cut off there. Kaboom. Struck by an unseen hand, the man's head crashed to the ground like his friends before him. In the blink of an eye, two high-ranked hunters had lost their consciousness. It was then, Hyung Nim, perhaps because the ground rumbled loudly twice in a row. Yoo Jin-ho had regained his consciousness somehow. "Hyung Nim." Jinwoo lowered his body and listened closely to the kid's voice. "Hey, Jin-ho, I'm here." Yoo Jin-ho managed to crack open his swollen eyelids. "Hwang Dong-soo, little brother." "Hwang Dong-seok, be careful." Jinwoo looked at Yoo Jin-ho breathing weakly with a helpless expression before stopping the kid's words. "It's fine, don't speak anymore. It was you, wasn't it? You killed my older brother, Hwang Dong-seok. Am I right?" Hwang Dong-soo's scared face grew closer with every step taken. And then, a certain someone's face who enjoyed being strong against the weak, but remained weak against someone stronger, overlapped with his face in Jinwoo's view. That caused his glare to become even colder. Meanwhile, Hwang Dong-soo cried out, "Answer me, Sung Jinwoo, didn't you murder my brother and his team?" Jinwoo stopped right in front of Hwang Dong-soo's nose and replied, "Ask him after you meet him again." Hwang Dong-soo punched with his fist wrapped in bright light. He was aiming for Jinwoo's face. Unfortunately for him, the latter simply ducked lower to evade that and shoved his own fist deep into the former's stomach. Just one hit and Hwang Dong-soo vomited out a mouthful of blood. "Stop the car, sir," I said. "Stop the DMN car." Thomas Andre roared out, and the car he was riding in came to a sudden halt. As the vehicle in front carrying their guild master came to an abrupt halt, the chasing cars ferrying the guild members all hurriedly came to a stop as well. Loud noises resounded out from everywhere, completely disregarding that. Boom! Thomas Andre kicked the car's door away and climbed out in a hurry so he could glare in a certain direction. His expression crumpled into a vicious scowl. A minute, the elites of the Scavenger Guild, often referred to as the world's best, jumped out from all the halted vehicles. "Master, what is it? Did something happen?" Thomas Andre answered briefly to all the hurried questions from the guild members. "It has already begun. I'll go ahead, so hurry and follow after me." "Sir, what had already begun?" Before anyone could ask him for an explanation, though, Thomas Andre bent his knees. The muscles on his legs expanded powerfully and the asphalt on the ground began melting down. Thomas Andre exploded up from the ground and in an instant disappeared from their view. Something is coming, something strong, that was. Just as Thomas Andre had sensed Jinwoo's powers, the latter also sensed the former's presence. So, he stopped moving his punching hand. His other hand was still grabbing onto the collar of Hwang Dong-soo, who now was suffering from just as many grievous wounds as Yu Jin-ho. A part of the disused factory's ceiling caved in, and through the open gap, one of the 4 remaining special authority rank hunters in the world, Thomas Andre, flew in and landed on the ground. Since he knew that a guest was arriving anyway, Jinwoo wasn't surprised in the slightest as he calmly took a look at the landing zone. Thomas Andre stood up straight and quickly confirmed the situation. He first saw Yu Jin-ho, then Jinwoo, and finally, the end of Jinwoo's hand. His gaze moved in that order until stopping at Hwang Dong-soo. Right away, Thomas Andre's forehead creased up. Jinwoo's incredible magical energy emission had completely masked Hwang Dong-soo's presence, and he couldn't initially sense it. Thomas Andre took off and discarded his sunglasses. Hwang Dong-soo, is he still alive? For now, Thomas Andre resorted to using simple English, and enunciated each word loudly so that Jinwoo, someone who might be not familiar with the language, could hear him clearly. "Let him go. If you do that, we'll forget that today's event had ever happened. I'm asking you for a favor." Jinwoo strengthened his grip on Hwang Dong-soo's collar and asked, "What if I don't want to?" "Then, well, a favor won't be a favor anymore." One of the most powerful hunters in the world bared his fangs. A regular hunter would start PSing their pants right about now. However, Jinwoo's own aura didn't lose out to Thomas Andre's. "Come, then. You, by any chance, don't you know who I am?" Jinwoo curtly responded. "Doesn't matter who you are." It was then Hwang Dong-soo somehow regained his consciousness and shouted out after discovering Thomas Andre. "Master, kill this son of a BTCH. Hurry." Boom. Jinwoo's fist struck Hwang Dong-soo, causing the man to black out and go limp again. Meanwhile, veins bulged on Thomas Andre's forehead. "You know who I am, yet you dare to do something like that in my presence." His expression was already crumpled into something unsightly before, but now it distorted even more to resemble a devil's face. Through personal experience, his body knew how one should deal with an opponent who didn't want to submit. White trash, a low-class white man. Thomas Andre grew up in a poor immigrant family. The school located in the poorest ghetto filled with African youths proved to be a hostile place for a lone white kid who knew no one and had no friends or acquaintances. Everywhere was filled with enemies. Just from meeting eyes did the fights break out. And often, his opponents carried around dangerous weapons, too. The moments when he had to fight off multiple enemies happened frequently as well. However, the heavens saw fit to bestow a certain gift that could only be described as unprecedented unto this white kid who seemingly possessed nothing. The overwhelming talent for physical power, the power that allowed him to trample on others. Paradoxically, the boy's surroundings became just about a perfect playground for him to confirm his own talents. Through the endless, continuous fights, the boy got to confirm the heaven-gifted talent he possessed. He clearly witnessed how his powers would change all those holding hostile feeling towards him. And so, he reigned like a king. Power, the authoritative power, financial power, and physical power. He got to learn quite early on that the many types of power existing in this world could turn a man into either a king or a slave. And when a completely different type of power manifested into this world, he grasped the opportunity and ascended to the status of a true king. If an opponent was unwilling to listen, then he'd use power to make them submit. Someone blocking his path would be destroyed without mercy, and he'd make all those looking down on him kneel on the ground, defeated. Physical power was the truth. Thomas Andre stayed true to what he knew, to what he was familiar with. Time seemed to freeze up. Thomas Andre, now full of malice and a destructive desire, pounced forward. The distance between the two men disappeared in an instant. His eyes met Jinwoo's as they closed in enough for their noses to touch. Blame your own ignorance. Thomas Andre reached out with his hand. He was planning to grab Jinwoo's head. His incomprehensible gripping power was one of his many hidden talents. Even if his opponent happened to be a top-ranked hunter, he'd easily shatter that person's skull. With fortunate timing, the hunters of the Scavenger Guild arrived at the location, and they all got to witness something peculiar. They got to witness something breaking past a wall of the disused factory at an alarming speed. That something destroyed the wall and crash-landed on the ground. Even then, it continued to slide away for a long time. And when that something finally stopped sliding right before their eyes, the hunters recognized its identity and couldn't hide their extreme astonishment from exploding out. No one could tell who cried out first. Thomas Andre, Master, are you all right? Just who managed to blow away the Goliath like this? They simply couldn't believe it. The force of the impact was so great that hot steam was still rising up from Thomas Andre's entire body. But then again, the skin on a regular person would have been torn to shreds as he slid on the ground like that. No, before that, his body would have broken into many pieces after slamming into the wall instead. However, Thomas Andre was perfectly fine, should one say, as befitting of a tanker who managed to survive Kamish's breath with nothing but his bare body. It was just that the expression he was making as he stood back up was not perfectly fine at all. Without saying anything else, Thomas Andre walked back into the abandoned factory he flew out from. A dizzying amount of killing intent erupted out from his entire body. The Vice Master, staring at that sight in a daze, hurriedly regained his wits and urged the guild's hunters. What are you all doing? Get a move on, now. 100 or so top-ranked hunters all rushed into the abandoned factory at once. Jinwoo discarded the still unconscious Hwang Dong-soo to a corner of the factory, and then summoned Kaisel and Ygritte out. A black sky dragon and a black knight revealed themselves. Jinwoo carefully lifted up Yu Jinho and handed the kid over to Ygritte. Take Jinho to the nearest hospital. Make sure he gets the necessary treatment. Got it. Ygritte bowed to display his understanding and jumped on the back of Kaisel to fly out of the factory. Thomas Andre didn't give a damn about the escaping sky dragon. No, his glare was firmly locked on Jinwoo and Jinwoo alone. Likewise, Jinwoo's glare was redirected to the American as well, and he got to see the crumpled expression of Thomas Andre and top-ranked hunters rushing inside beyond his shoulders. Their number was around 100. It seemed that this guy mobilized and brought along all the elites of the Scavenger Guild, often referred to as the best guild in the world. The thing was, though, Jinwoo immediately called out his shadow soldiers hiding within his shadow and waiting for his commands. The darkness slowly spread out from beneath his feet, and one by one, the shadow soldiers rose up from the ground. Thomas Andre's steps came to a halt after he discovered all those soldiers. The number was somewhere near 1,000. The abandoned factory was completely filled up in an instant. But even then, the columns of soldiers extended well beyond to the back as well. Thomas Andre narrowed his eyes. It's not just the incredible numbers, either. He even spotted several summoned creatures that were easily on a similar level as rank S hunters, such as the knight holding a massive shield, or the mage wearing a black robe, and even those giants occupying the backline, too. Their magical energy emission didn't lose out to some of the highest ranked hunters out there. Indeed, these were truly excellent summoned creatures that even the entirety of the Scavenger Guild participating could not guarantee a victory against. A smile broke out on Thomas Andre's face as he licked his lips. That fool Hwang Dong-soo no longer mattered in this fight. There was only one way to restore his damaged pride, and that would be to kill that impudent beastard. But, before he did that, Thomas Andre made his final offer of mercy. If you admit to your mistakes and back off, I promise I'll spare your life. Instead of a verbal answer, Jinwoo simply flipped him a bird. Thick veins bulged all over on Thomas Andre's forehead. UFC Kerr, right until the end. Thomas Andre ripped his shirt off. A shirt made out of top-class material extracted from the monsters was ripped into pieces like a sheet of cheap paper. And then, the muscles in his entire torso ballooned up and hardened like armor covering his whole body. Magic energy so vast that it raised goosebumps from the people nearby leaked out from beneath his feet. It was so vast and powerful. In fact, it looked as if gold-colored steam was slowly rising up from his shoulders. The world's greatest tanker had released his full might once more. Jinwoo wordlessly watched Thomas Andre's transformation before unleashing his own magical energy as well. The hunters of the Scavenger Guild nervously swallowed their saliva as they stared at Jinwoo. Unlike them in their heightened state of tension, though, Jinwoo was completely calm and collected. He felt that this was the perfect opportunity to test out his growth up until now. He was now facing an opponent that he could definitely go all out against. Abruptly, Jinwoo recalled what Kamish the dragon had told him. There are 4 people borrowing the ruler's powers, right? Could it be that those 4 were among the 5 survivors of the Kamish raid, the 4 of the Special Authority rank hunters? If that was true, then the odds of Thomas Andre being a human borrowing the ruler's powers were very high. Jinwoo made the first move, advance. Almost immediately after their sovereign issued that command, the shadow soldiers rushed forward with rather scary vigor. Thomas Andre also cried out loudly, "They are coming!" 1 man versus 1 guild. Nearly 1,000 summons and almost 100 elite hunters collided violently on this day. Thomas Andre blew away Iron standing at the front of the pack and quickly searched for Jinwoo's whereabouts as a bright glare shot out from his eyes. He spotted someone rushing towards him at an incredible pace. Over there. Thomas Andre turned around, but Jinwoo was faster. The latter dug into the former's defense in an instant and stabbed at the waist with the Demon King's short sword. Unfortunately, the blade failed to break past the hardened skin of Thomas Andre. Jinwoo's eyes widened. The American blew his opponent away with his elbow as a smirk formed on his face. This was the true power of the Special Authority rank hunter. Jinwoo might possess a pretty decent turn of speed, but there was no way he'd be able to exceed Thomas Andre's defenses. Feel my power and taste what true despair is like. Thomas Andre judged that the advantage was now with him. He didn't stop his attacks there and reached out with his hand. When he did, a powerful pulling force was generated from his hand and quickly reeled back the flung-away Jinwoo. The invisible hand. This was Thomas Andre's ability that managed to drag Kamish the dragon from the air to the ground. Jinwoo was brought back closer to Thomas Andre at a frightening turn of speed, but then, his eyes shot open again. Ruler's authority. Thomas Andre's shoulders quivered from the unseen force slamming down from above. What? He was left utterly stunned after confirming with his entire body that his opponent also possessed the power only the Special Authority rank hunters possessed. Jinwoo didn't miss that opening. His punch slammed into Thomas Andre's face for the 2nd time today. And for the first time ever after becoming a hunter, the man nicknamed Goliath spat out blood from his mouth. The Hunter Bureau wasn't sitting back sucking on its fingers either. Dozens of vehicles belonging to the Bureau carrying hunters were on their way to the same destination as the members of the Scavenger Guild. However, the 2 cars right in front of the pack suddenly came to a halt not too far from their destination. The vehicle's driver looked back at Adam White. He was the sole Rank S hunter affiliated with the Hunter Bureau. Agent White, I think it's time you explain to us what's going on here. We don't have time for me to explain everything in. Adam White couldn't finish his sentence, because he saw the complexion of the Rank S hunter growing pale rather quickly at that moment. It was the first time seeing such an expression forming on the face of a man who famously possessed a steely heart, formed after experiencing all sorts of close shaves in his life. Realizing that something quite serious had happened, Adam White quickly asked, "Did something happen up ahead?" The Rank S hunter replied with a frozen stiff face, "If we continue on, all of us will have to risk our lives." The corners of his lips bust open from that hit. While being forced away from the impact, Thomas Andre was reeling from the shock of the freakish power that smacked him in the face. How could such a power be? That punch was heavy enough for his head to shake around. Thomas Andre had been looking down on Jinwoo as some random kid even though he willingly acknowledged the Korean's powers. But now, having been struck twice in the face, his thoughts had gone through a rapid change. Thomas Andre discarded all arrogant thoughts from his head. He also realized that he might lose today if he continued to fight while being considerate towards his surroundings. His opponent this time was far, far tougher than his initial expectation. Reinforcement. When he muttered out those words, his body, armed with muscles that had transformed into solid armor, suddenly ballooned up explosively. His near 2-meter-tall physique transformed into a monster over 3 meters tall in the blink of an eye. Thomas Andre roared out like an angry beast and raised both of his arms, now as thick as a marble pillar, high above his head. All of this happened way too fast. Jinwoo, in the middle of his sprint, sensed danger up ahead. What could it be? His brain fell into a dilemma. The thing was, not once did his instincts lie to him in moments of great peril. Jinwoo hurriedly stopped his forward movement and almost at the same time, jumped backwards. With the difference of a millisecond, Thomas Andre's massive fists pounded on the ground below. Everything caught within the radius disintegrated from the horrifying shock wave. His skill, demolition. That incredible might force Jinwoo to take several more steps backwards, even though he had already escaped to a safe zone. Debris flung up into the air fell down like raindrops. As befitting a hunter who subjugated a dragon, his sturdiness and destructive power were second to none. But there was no time to remain stunned. Another loud roar exploded out from Thomas Andre's mouth. Capture, a powerful gravitational pulling force with Thomas Andre as the center began yanking everything within the range towards him. It was as if he had become a black hole. Shadow soldiers and hunters all got into a messy tangle and flew towards his position. Jinwoo might have been one of the targets of this skill, capture, but he used ruler's authority to repel away the pulling force. And when he finally managed to break free from that powerful force and jumped rearward one more time, Thomas Andre's demolition skill burst forth yet again. Not just the shadow soldiers, but even the hunters of the scavenger got swept away by the shock wave. Screams rose up from here and there. The Vice Master had discovered this horrifying situation rather late, and yelled out at the top of his lungs, "Get away from the Master, now!" 3-4 fleet-footed hunters quickly retrieved their injured colleagues and escaped to the back. Meanwhile, Thomas Andre and his emotionless face viciously dashed towards Jinwoo's location. A rank of special authority implied one was afforded the same level of rights as an independent nation. That was why he needed to demonstrate what the punishment for disobeying the king was like. Thomas Andre arrived in Jinwoo's location in no time at all and threw a powerful punch forward. His fist scythed the air. He already knew it all too well. He knew better than anyone that he was too slow to land a punch on this beastard possessing the nimbleness of a wild beast. Especially so, when he was in his reinforced state. His strength and defense would be enhanced to an unimaginable degree, but at the same time, his speed would drop proportionally. Fortunately enough for Thomas Andre, though, he possessed a skill that could easily cover for that drawback. He extended his hand out to Jinwoo, who was rapidly creating distance between them. Capture. Once more, a powerful, incredibly attractive force activated between the two men. The American knew he'd not miss his prey now. With his body fortified through the reinforcement skill, his attention wouldn't be stolen away from some measly diversionary tricks. Leaving his extended left hand as it was, Thomas Andre pulled his right hand back and clenched it into a tight fist. An enormous amount of magical energy, enough to smash the torso of a top-ranked hunter apart into a gory mess, gathered into his right fist. Skill, power smash. Thomas Andre's fist, carrying a gobsmacking level of destructive power, slowly moved forward. But then it happened. His eyes opened wider. He saw Jinwoo's own right arm muscle suddenly expanding greatly in size. Could he be thinking of directly confronting me? Finding this incredulous, Thomas Andre increased the pulling power. However, Jinwoo didn't try to evade it but actually used his ruler's authority to further increase his momentum. Instead, the American cried out in shock. "A minute." Jinwoo approached far quicker than Thomas Andre had anticipated and threw a punch a little quicker than his counterpart could. At the same time, he lowered his head and lightly evaded the American's own belated punch. Boom! Thomas Andre flew away like a rocket, demolished the wall of the disused factory and rolled around on the dirt for quite some time. The deep and lengthy pit left behind on the ground by his sliding body resembled furrows on a field. He hurriedly pushed himself off the ground, but Jinwoo was already standing before him by then. Thomas Andre roared out and threw countless punches. Every time his fists flew past, the ground exploded and the air was split seemingly into pieces. Each hit was ferocious enough to utterly destroy a person's body from just a light touch. Unfortunately, none of those could actually touch Jinwoo. He simply dodged all of Thomas Andre's fists and accurately landed every one of his counters on the American's vital spots. Little by little, blood pooled in Thomas Andre's mouth. How could this be? How can a mage-type hunter be this powerful and this fast? The more confused he got, the greater the physical damage he suffered. Am I losing? But that couldn't be happening. No, that must not happen. His ability to overwhelm his enemies with pure physical violence was the sole reason for his existence, the only thing proving that he was him and not someone else. Thomas Andre gritted his blood-soaked teeth. His eyes under the arched-up brows emitted a maddened glow. I am none other than Thomas Andre. You think you can bring me down with only that much? That's why I told you before. It doesn't matter who you are. Dozens of vehicles stopped almost all at once in a location fairly far away from the abandoned factory. It was decided that getting any closer would be dangerous for them. The folks climbing out of the vehicles were elite hunters affiliated with the Hunter Bureau. Every single one of them was a distinguished, excellent hunter in their own right. However, despite being with such great hunters, Adam White couldn't feel reassured at all right now. But that was understandable when these people were being compared to hunters Sung Jinwoo and Thomas Andre, plus the entirety of the Scavenger Guild's elites. Oh my god, just what kind of monsters were fighting right now to emit this much magical energy? His feet didn't want to budge from the spot. But Adam White was right behind him, waiting to be guided forward with a pair of pleading eyes. Brent had no choice but to give up and spoke in a resigned voice. It's over there. However, it truly is dangerous. So my advice is, you need to be dead sure about this. Adam White nodded his head. It was at that moment something shot up high in the air along with a loud, explosive noise, before crashing back down to the ground. Adam White looked in the direction of that noise, before quickly shifting his gaze back to Brent. The Rank S hunter couldn't bring himself to close shut his slack jaw. If I haven't made a mistake, then that was. How could Brent, a Rank S hunter, make a mistake with his identification? Even then, he hesitated greatly before carrying on. It was Mr. Thomas Andre falling from the air. What was that? Even I can't be sure. Adam White's eyes grew incredibly large as he hurriedly shouted out. Hurry, we need to go there right now. Brent watched Adam White run over there and gestured to other hunters to follow them. The Hunter Bureau's group soon arrived at the location where two gigantic masses of magic energy were colliding against each other. And then, they all saw it. They saw the scene of the one and only Thomas Andre being pummeled into a rag by a lone Asian hunter. What should we do now? We need to stop them. Are you planning to stay back and watch a special authority rank hunter get beaten to death? You want us to stop that? You mean, stop that man? Brent stared dumbfoundedly at the Asian hunter emitting a truly nonsensical amount of magic power. It was so enormous. In fact, he didn't even want to go anywhere near that maelstrom if he could help it. But, before he had a chance to say those words out loud, Adam White dashed forward. He might be a Hunter Bureau agent, but still, he was a regular person. He could lose his life simply by coming into contact with magical energy being emitted from a top-ranked hunter. Thomas Andre lay sprawled on the ground and vomited out a mouthful of blood. Jinwoo mounted on top of him. And just like when he was fighting against the Demon King Baron back in the Demon's Castle, he grasped Thomas Andre's neck and slammed down with his other fist. He could sense Thomas Andre's resistance weaken gradually, and finally, just as Jinwoo raised his fist high up to land the finisher, he heard a certain someone's desperate cry. Sung Jinwoo Hunter Nim, please stop. I beg you, stay your hand, please. Just before the fist could slam down on the target, as Adam White cried out, his hand reaching out in desperation, Thomas Andre finally opened his mouth. I lost. Jinwoo's fist stopped millimeters away from the American's nose, as if he had used up all of his energy just to surrender. Thomas Andre lost his consciousness right afterwards and went limp. Only then did Jinwoo withdraw his fist and wordlessly got back up. Soon afterwards, hunters affiliated with the Bureau cautiously filed in around him and Thomas Andre on the ground. What the FCK? What the hell is this? Did this really happen? Seriously? Thank you for watching. Subscribe and enable notifications so you don't miss the next chapter.